This is my custom built really high bench, and today I'll be showing you exactly how I made it. It's perfect for a balcony and it really does feel insane sitting so high up, and I promise you'll be glad you built this. I'm building this one for my parents who have this really cool balcony, but when you sit in a normal chair, your view looks like this. So I decided I'd build them this bench, and I'm going to take you along with me so you can build one for yourself. So with all that, let's get started. For this project, because it's going to be outdoors all the time, I wanted to make sure that the wood would stay strong. So for this, you can pick a weather-resistant type of wood, such as cedar for example, but I'm making this out of pressure-treated wood since it's a little cheaper. I'm only using 2x4s and 2x8s from Home Depot, and while I was there I had them all cut to 4 feet. These are all the tools that I'll be using, so pretty basic stuff. I'm using those 2.5-inch wood screws to fasten just about everything together for this build. As I was trying to picture how this was going to look, I decided to simply use 4 4-foot 2x4s as the legs to hold it up and to make sure that you'd be seated pretty high up when sitting on this bench. The first thing I did was create the armrest by cutting a 2x4 to 2 feet and screwing it to 2 legs because it'll keep them attached. I made sure to drill pilot holes and countersink before screwing, and that goes for all the screws in this project, unless I got lazy and just screwed it straight in, but don't do that. Next, I needed to add the piece that the seat is going to rest on, so I used another 2-foot long 2x4 for each side. And since I wanted to make it recline slightly, I angled this back around 10 degrees so that gravity would pull you slightly back into the backrest when seated. It turned out I was short a 2x4, so I just cut a 2x8 in half and then cut it to size before screwing it in. While I'm doing that, I do want to mention that because this is pressure treated wood, you need to be careful when cutting or sanding it by wearing a respirator or other protective gear so that you don't inhale any toxic chemicals. Also, whenever you cut pressure treated wood, the side that has a fresh cut won't be pressure treated, so you'll need to seal it with a product like Cut and Seal or something similar. I didn't show this, but I did it later on. Anyway, once I cut the length to 2 feet, I placed it at an angle using a speed square to set the angle to around 10 degrees leaning back. Then I just put 2 screws on each side and did that for both. When placing this piece, I measured 12 inches down on the side where this piece would be lower because of the angle. Now we have the 2 armrests built, and it's time to start putting together the big 2x8s that will be for sitting on and leaning back. But before I do that, I wanted to take some inspiration from some other chairs around the house to get an idea of how long the seat should be and how tall the backrest should be in order to achieve maximum comfort. These 2 chairs that I measured were very different. The first had a backrest of 20 inches compared to the second, which had a 28-inch tall backrest, so I figured I'd split the difference and make mine 2 feet. Then as far as the seat length, I decided on 16 inches so that you can still easily bend your knees over it. So with these measurements in mind, I played around with a 2-foot long piece that will be used for the backrest and decided on about a 15-degree angle to recline in order to keep the 16-inch seat length. Because the width of the 2 pieces that were already screwed to the legs weren't the same, I measured how much more thickness I'd have to add to be able to make the backrest piece be level, and I got 3/8 of an inch, so I cut 3/8 of an inch thick from this scrap wood that I later sealed and put it under this new piece and screwed it together to make it flat. I hope that made sense as you're watching it. I tried to slow down the time lapse here so you can see how I slid in the scrap wood to make it level. So now we have both sides of the bench done, and all that's left to do is put in those 2x8s to actually be able to sit on and join these 2 pieces together. Before I do this though, I'll have to move this all up to the balcony because otherwise if I assemble it downstairs, it'll be really annoying to have to carry it up. So definitely if you're doing this, move your workspace to wherever you want to keep the bench when you're done. Now that I'm up on the balcony, I positioned one side of the bench and clamped it to the railing to hold it there so that I can hold up the other side and put on the 2x8s. I used two 2x8s with a bit of spacing between them to make up the seat, and then just screwed them down to that piece that they're sitting on, making sure to drill pilot holes and countersink and then put in the screws. Then I just went and did the same on the other side, making sure it was all level. Just to make sure it was secure, I hopped up to check it out, and it felt pretty sturdy. Next was assembling the backrest. I screwed these 2x8s into that back beam I put earlier, and for the top part, I just played around until it felt right and I knew that there would be enough spacing for a middle piece. I had to go back to Home Depot to get a little more wood, which is why it's a different day. I had the 2x8 cut to 4 feet again, and then placed it across and marked where I would need to trim it in order to fit in between those armrests. Once I had it cut to size, I slid it in there, making sure I had even spacing between the top and bottom backrests, and then just screwed it together like before. Now, because this bench is so high up, it's definitely going to need a step and a footrest. Off camera, I tried to put a little step horizontally, which is why you just saw me turning it, but that didn't work because the screws were bearing too much weight, so I turned it vertically, and now it's a strong footrest. To make the step, I cut 12-inch long pieces that I screwed into each front leg. And then I put a 2x8 on top horizontally with another foot-long piece supporting the front on each side. This probably wasn't the prettiest way to do it, but I mean, clearly it's a functioning step, so I'll take it. The last couple things I had to do were take off these tags and the staples that came with them, and then fill the holes. I did this using just this plastic wood filler I already had, and then once they dried a few minutes later, I went and sanded them flush. Since this was for my parents, they just liked it how it was and didn't really want to bother with paint or anything, but you definitely can paint it to look nicer, and then I would suggest adding outdoor cushions as well, which I plan on getting for them this summer when it's warmer out, and they'll more likely be using this bench. For now though, this is where it's at, and to be honest, it serves its purpose really well. The reclined backrest and seat are really comfortable, and you feel like a king sitting on this thing so high up. I hope you were able to enjoy and get some value out of this, and I encourage you to try this or make something similar using these ideas. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.